And we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Wide World of Warhammer. With us though, we've got the beautiful, sexy man himself, Adam Camilleri. How you doing, buddy?
I'm very well, mate. My very great pleasure to be here in this wide world of Warhammer.
Absolutely. What a great name. I mean, if two of us came up with it, I mean, it's got to be a good name, right?
Legit, I joked about this on another podcast. I have a Google Doc with just like a list of just future podcasts I might do one day. And one of the ones that I like expounded upon and did a whole page breakdown of what I wanted to do if I ever got around to doing it was the Wide World of Warhammer. So it's my great pleasure to be on this show because it's essentially the same thing. But someone else just came to the same conclusion. This is a sick show, and my absolute pleasure to be on it.
Oh, thank you. You're very, very kind. Look, maybe I have to get a little page brief one day and just get a little idea of what you had in mind and maybe see it relied. It gets, just copy someone else's homework, but, don't exactly copy, right?
Mate, you're already doing it. Yeah, you're doing everything else that you're going to do anyway. Perfect. You're fine. Knocking it out of the park.
Perfect. As well, I mean, I've got a comment, man. I thought I would have the curliest hair on this podcast, but man, Adam's hair is looking fire today.
Slaughtered. So this morning, I was on the Nova Open Charity Foundation raffle kind of wrap up with Paul Murphy, Tanya Gates, and our very own Joshua Diffie, the heartthrob himself. And yeah, I had to do my hair for that. And so I just got home from work, ate dinner, jumped on this podcast. Still, what do the kids say? Lit? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, there you go. You're becoming a Zoomer sooner, Adam. You once were a Boomer, now you're a Zoomer. Look at you go. You go Yeezy. When can we expect Art of War Down Under on TikTok? I mean, come on, it's going to come soon, right?
TikTok? I don't know. I still don't have a Twitter, mate. Like I don't have a page. I don't have an Instagram page for it. I am so bottom of the barrel shit at the social medias.
Look! Someone's got to do it. Like we can leave that to someone else, right? Leave that to the next generation.
That's right.
Stick to a traditional Facebooks and YouTube algorithm and go from there.
I may be revamping the intro to Art of War Down Under. I think it's time. Maybe I'll launch it with the first review of the new edition. It's it's time.
Oh, it's time. It's time. And I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But tonight, we're not talking about Art of War Down Under, although slightly a little bit. We're talking about Adam's adventures around the USA and Canada. Can't forget Canada. It's not just American adventures; it's Canadian adventures as well.
last year was America and Mexico. This year is America and Canada. Yeah.
Absolutely. So something that I'm sure many Warhammer people would love to aspire to do is do a long time vagabonding around the USA and Canada playing Warhammer 40k.
Vagabonding.
Am I wrong, Adam?
No, you are not wrong. Relying on the goodness of others and my COVID savings. Yes, vagabonding indeed. Like, yeah, I stayed with so many amazing people who just put me up just because I was in town, and then pulling the dragging the savings account through the mud. We made it work.
Hell yeah, that's actually one of my questions. Going to see how can you afford such a thing? So obviously, I know you did it last year for quite an extended time, and then you did it again this year. So it must be good the first time you did it again. So look at that.
Well, I'm lucky. I've got a fairly well playing job. I don't have any kids. Like I'm in my mid 30s now, so I'm earning a decent amount of money. And COVID just like made it apparent to me that while I've got the cash, while I've got the energy, just go with it. Whatever.
Absolutely. So, like, what made you want to sort of do this big trip? So, we alluded to you did it last year. So, just like obviously Australia was still in lockdowns, but you went over to the US like well ahead of LVO, and then stayed a bit afterwards in Mexico and stuff like that. But then this year you went just after Uprising, so in January, and then literally up to the beginning of May. Honestly, you were there in the US and Canada, experiencing the Wide World of Warhammer. So, what was like the philosophy behind it, and like what made you do this such a trip?
It's so on brand, ain't it? So initially I went over for just 1 month in January 2020. So before everything went to shit, January 2020, I went over to do Charity Hammer and LVO. Those were two things I went for. I was invited to Charity Hammer, and I thought, cool, I'll go for Charity Hammer, stay for LVO, come home. And while I was there, I wanted to suss out if I wanted to try and be a full-time 40k person, like if I wanted to try and be, one of the Art of War boys, essentially, because they had only just started getting going. I wanted to suss it out. And after that trip, I decided, yes, I wanted to have a go at trying to do this thing and, see if I could go full time like Scary was at the time, like Nick was at the time, and like, the Art of War boys. Hell, Jack Harpster hadn't joined up at that point. He was still on the periphery. And look what's, done to him. But so I came back raring to go ready to make a full-time run at it. I was planning to come home and then just spend like a month or two getting my shit together, and then go over there and go for like 6, 9, 12 months and see if I could be a full-time 40K person. And then COVID happened, and I didn't go anywhere for like 2 freaking years because I wasn't allowed to. So, but it was that was bubbling away, and of course I matured and life changes. 2 years being stuck at home, a lot of that time, single and by myself. You kind of learn a little bit more about who you are and what you want. That was from 32 to 30. Oh no, sorry, 31 to 33. I think was the age group I was stuck at home for COVID, wanting to travel, wanting to do this thing. So the second things opened up, I was gone. I was about like bang, bad out of hell, straight to see if I still wanted to do this thing. And after 6 months in the States, I decided no, I didn't want to be a full-time 40K person. I missed my family. I missed my home. I had a girlfriend by then. We'd been together for almost, I think, about a year when I'd left that first time for the big stretch. And yeah, I decided I didn't want to be full-time. But I wanted I kind of wanted to have my cake and eat it too, so to speak. I still wanted to travel and experience this awesome life, but I didn't want to be shackled to it. I realized I've got a really good day job. I've got a really good life in Australia. I've got phenomenal friends here. We've got a phenomenal community, and I really missed my family, especially like I had young nieces, young nephews, and like I said, my partner. So after 6 months in the States, just under 6 months, I think it was like 5 months and a week, when the middle month of that was entirely in Mexico, and then I went back for 6 weeks, and then I came home. I realized I didn't want to go full time like that. If I was able to go full time in Australia, so be it. But that's going to be a longer journey than just pulling the plug, jumping into the trap house with Nick and the boys, which I was very welcome to do. But also, it's really freaking hard to get a visa, man. Like I hear it's easier for you guys to get a visa with us than it is for us to get a visa with you guys. Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
You guys being Americans coming to Australia, then vice versa, correct? Is that what you're trying to allude to? Yeah. So, that's what I experienced as well. So, context. So, everyone, I did all my university and college education in the US, and then obviously by the time I finished university, college, like I was looking to try and stay in the US somewhere, but just it was so hard to get a job. So, this was back end of 2018, and that's why part of the reason I came back. As well as other things, like as you said, that family and friends you miss so much, and the quality of living is definitely different. I lived in Oklahoma, so Bible Belt America, very flat, very Republican. So take what you want from that, but it's very different. It is obviously much harder to get there. So when people do complain about green cards, like there's a legitimate thing why they can't do it. So.
Well, I went down the whole path to trying to get that visa while I was over there for those near 6 months, and I hit roadblock, and then it'd take me like 2 weeks to figure out and get all the bits and pieces to get past that roadblock, and then there's the next one, and then all the bits and pieces to get past that, and then there's the next one, and it was exhausting. It was really exhausting, and by the time I'd figured out how to get the actual submission done, I had to leave the country because my 3 months was up. And so I was there on what's called an ESTA, and you can stay for up to 3 months on an ESTA, and then you have to leave. It doesn't tell you how long you have to leave for. Technically, you could just leave for like a day and try and come back in, but they might say no and tell you to hit the road. So that's why I went to Mexico for a month, and then they let me back in. I was going to be in for another 3 months, but I pulled the plug a little early due to some personal stuff, which we may get to.
If you want to comment on it, you can, but obviously you don't have to.
I was going to lose my missus. She was going to leave me, pretty much. And I had to make a decision. Like, you just had these 5.5 months, mate. She's not asking for much. So I went back and I surprised her. I pulled the plug early, didn't tell her, and just rocked up on her doorstep, traveling, 40 hours from the other side of the world. Saved my relationship. Has made my relationship a million times better. And yeah, no regrets. 0 regrets. It was the right call.
There we go. And you're still together today. So happy days. And I think we alluded to before supposed to go to Fiji, but other circumstances happened and sadly couldn't go. That's all right.
That's the end of this. That was a different trip. that was the
trip.
Last trip. This one, other shit happened. So I wanted
third time's the charm.
Exactly right. So when I was over there for those 5 months for the big trip, the one last year, there's a bunch of collaborations I wanted to do. Tabletop Titans. I wanted to, of course, spend a lot of time with Nick and the boys in the trap house. Also, Dice Check. There's a lot of people I wanted to work with to grow my own business, get better at what I do, and also a bunch of people who I love, admire, I've been talking to for years. I wanted to meet up with them. They wanted me to come hang with them. So did a bunch of that stuff. I had planned to go to Canada after I came back into the country from Mexico. I went to Adepticon and then went back to the Trap House, and I was going to go to Canada when I pulled the plug. And so that's something I felt I was unrequited. And so when I went over this time, I made sure I did that. So that was visiting with my lovely guys that play on tabletop, also with mini wargaming. Bunch of other boxes I really wanted to tick, bunch of other groups of people I really wanted to mingle with, get my name out to, see, feel, touch, taste, all these fucking content creators that I've enjoyed and I've loved over, my near decade playing competitive 40k. So yeah, and so when I went over the second time, of course, it was to do another LVO, which I've been so freaking lucky to maintain that connection with FLG and be like they let me be like one of the faces of their product, of their events. That's been like couldn't have asked for more from them. They've been phenomenal to me, and so I wanted to honor that. I wanted to spend some time with my mates in the trap house because I lived with those boys for like 4 months. I missed them, and then I wanted to spend some time in Canada. So a couple of weeks for LVO, about a month for Canada because I wanted to go see Val. My good Val Heffelfinger, my good mate over there, Dustin Henshaw as well. And then I wanted to spend some time in the trap house. So there's another month, and then in the middle, I just went to Mardi Gras, baby. Just partied down in New Orleans, getting feisty.
Hell
it was
yeah.
amazing. Hell freaking yeah, man. Have you been?
I have. I've been to New Orleans. I was there Christmas 2017. I actually, funny enough, didn't like New Orleans that much. I was only there for like a week or so. But I could see why Bourbon Street and stuff was obviously nice to be. But I'm not much of a party guy, so I didn't really get in that atmosphere. But I'd have to go during Mardi Gras.
I'm not a party guy anymore either, but that something about that town just takes me by the soul and leads me on my merry way. I don't drink. I don't do drugs anymore. Like straight up clean as a whistle for over a decade in every respect. And you should have seen me like chest full of beads, shirt wide open, big fat cigar, walking down like the street, just jazzing out. It's just I'm a different dude in that town. Like it is ridiculous.
Yeah, what you're talking about how much you love New Orleans. Maybe you want to go back. So, I really should try and experience it. And also, it's not Sopa Piers, but what is the fried dumpling thing they have that's in New Orleans? It's a powdered sugar thing.
Yeah. It's from Cafe Du Monde, and it is jeez. They'll come to us when we least expect it. They're overrated. They're overrated. I'm sorry.
Oofed.
I don't love them. They're fine. They're just like a donut with way too much icing sugar on it. They're fine. Yeah. They're not like people waiting in line at Cafe Du Monde for like an hour for these things. I'm like, no.
yeah, not worth that. But we love some Sopa Piers. Sopa Piers are normally pretty good, which is like a Mexican dessert, donut basically, and it's made of powdered sugar. So, anyways, so back to what you talked about at the start. So LVO. So this is your third time going, I think, or second or third time going to LVO, second time commentating.
Third time going. Second time commentating for FLG directly. So we had there was the one where we did the bogus stream. Me, Peter, Paul. So Val, me, Peter the Falcon, Paul Murphy put together a slapped together stream that ran against the G-Dub stream that had Reese and Frankie on it, and we knocked him out of the park. There's no competition, but no, they did a great job. We did a great job. And then the one after that was cancelled for COVID, and that was the Nopen. That was the virtual one we did. That was one by Tank over in the UK. Dale's got it's the beignets.
Beignets, there we go. We got there.
And then I streamed 2020. Streamed 2023. So I've been there personally for 2. Officially streamed once. Well, I was there for 2020. 2021 was an open. 2022, was the one I was there for. 2023. So I have streamed. I personally streamed 2 in person. One was the bogus stream, and the other one was virtual. So yeah.
But that's cool. But what's it like to go to LVO? So I know a bunch of Australians obviously went over this year as well. So obviously you could make Matt Rossoli and Stewie Trainer. But like for people in Australia and I guess around the world who haven't had the privilege to go to LVO, like what is it like and like what's that experience like?
It's wild, man. There is nothing like the LVO. It is a destination. It is an event. It just feels special. You walk in there and you're just like dwarfed by the hall. Like it's everything about it is just freaking huge and grandiose. It's amazing. If you can go, absolutely go. It is. I mean, even like ITC championships, even if you're not in the runnings or anything like that, it's still just one of those things you should do. Like as everyone should make a pilgrimage to Warhammer World. Everyone should go to an LVO. Like that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and as well as being like the largest event in the Warhammer 40k to date, obviously LGT's they're going heels.
I want this tit for tat. I want this to make everything explode because these two like mega powers just keep having to one up each other. That sounds like a beautiful world.
Yeah, so obviously, as well as being the biggest 40K event, like there's a bunch of other events as well going on, like obviously the conference and stuff like that. So I'm sure the whole experience of vibes is amazing. So, but how do you sort of feel? Obviously, this past LVO, it's sort of a bit of a weird one. So obviously, here in Australia, we sort of already jumped the shark, and we were already playing Arcs of Omen, which is the new mission pack with Uprising being the big event, and that was obviously mixed responses. Like we can say what we want about that, but then LVO is sort of weird how we played the old pack per se, and then also on the day they released a new terrain, being the Sisters terrain, like. What was that vibe like overall? And like, how do you look back on it?
There was some definite consternation, and the LVO. So the only thing the LVO did wrong, in my opinion, is they didn't stick with the. So they'd thrown down the gauntlet and said, "Hey, we're playing this pack. We're finishing the season with this pack," and then after saying they were going to do it, they ummed later. They vocally, publicly ummed and said that they might go back on it. All they needed to do was just not go back on it. They didn't go back on it eventually anyway. And I think I from knowing a little bit behind the scenes, extrapolating some conversations I've had, they wanted to leave the option open to accept nerfs. Should nerfs have come in for flamers and stuff like that, they wanted the option to be like, okay, we can adopt these nerfs. But in doing that, they just left so much uncertainty bubbling. So hopefully they've learned from it, because I don't agree with what they did. They threw down the gauntlet and said, this is what we're doing. And they should have just stuck to their guns. The terrain stuff, funnily enough, the terrain stuff was for the better, but it was done in a way that left a bad taste in people's mouths, because they thought they'd been given a rough draw, because they thought they knew everything about the terrain they were going to be playing on. And then there was 2 new sets, and the higher you're in the rankings you got, the less likely you were to pay on the sets that you knew were coming, and more likely to play on the sets that you didn't know were coming. And so that, of course, prominent people get to the top tables. They feel like they got dealt with poorly. They make a big fuss. Totally, they're right. They're a consumer. They can have a freaking opinion on the product they've purchased. 100% within their rights to do so. But that does they did things right in the wrong way. Does that make sense? If I'm going to be critical in any way, they made the event better by adding better terrain overall, but because they didn't make it public knowledge, they pissed people off. They threw down the gauntlet and stated what rules you were going to be playing, but because they ummed and ahed, they pissed people off. So just stick with your guns. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's a completely fair comment, and like obviously, I got personally got look down, maybe shouting out against some person from StatCheck. Too
hot right there, baby. Yeah.
Look, I think I think you could agree or disagree about the decision. Like as you said, there's arguably better terrain, but the terrain that was playing on the top tables, if people knew in advance, maybe like obviously those Tau shooting lists or maybe more dedicated shooting lists would have been changed, or they would alter the game plan a bit, maybe.
100%. And look, that's Scotsman in particular. I think he's valid. He may be a little bit too loud with the way he said it, but I think he's pretty valid. He was a little bit, we'll talk about it privately.
Look, it is what it
he knows
is.
how I feel. Right. I'm a big fan of that gentleman.
Yeah, but so obviously talking about some Australian pride, but how was it having a bunch of Australians and also our Kiwi brethren over there? Like, were you able to hang out with them a bunch?
Mate, it was. Unfortunately not. When I'm at LVO, I am in work mode, and as soon as I'm finished at LVO, generally, I don't want to look at anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to go eat and be in a quiet as possible place, because it's so noisy. There's so much. It's just stimulation. Go. Got to pay attention to everything the players are saying, because you never want to say the wrong thing in front of thousands of people online, etc. Because they come for you. If you say one thing wrong, they all let you know. But yeah, so it's a lot of pressure. And so when I'm done, usually I just want to eat and be left alone. And so unfortunately, I didn't get as much time to spend with the boys as I wanted to. And they did us proud. All the whole ANZ grouping, like the Anzac boys, they all did us so proud going over there. I, in my heart, solely won, by the way. Just put it out there on Aussie TV. Have whatever opinions you want. You can ask me about mine privately if you like, about what went down there. And as somebody who had a part to play in that, I don't know if you know this story, but I wasn't calling that game, and my phone was blowing up while I was streaming and calling another game. And then I got down off my chair, took my headphones off, and broke a cardinal rule, which is I walked over and told Sean and Matt to fix up their shit. Like, you got that wrong, fix it up, I'm out, and pissed. And I broke one of my cardinal rules because I wasn't about to
Yeah,
Let all
sure.
this go down.
Yeah. But yes.
Let it all go down like that. And it still did. I didn't change shit. It still went down horribly. By everyone's metrics, it still went down poorly. But in my soul, I know if Solly had made that top table, even though I love you, Jackie boy, he was going to do ya.
Oh, look, maybe Australia's best athlete, maybe next year. It looks like he's going to get next year, and then we'll just win it this next year, right?
How can anybody contend with our finest athlete? Like
exactly.
Yeah,
I know it's funny that people obviously talk about. So Liam had like one of the best ITC seasons last year, but Matt was like honestly so close to, if not there as well. Like he can make the argument. Like he lost to Liam in the War Masters, he still won WTC, and then
he podiumed the War Masters. He podiumed the War Masters. He won the WTC. Did he come third or fourth at LVO? I can't remember what the final tally was, but he was top four minimum. Minimum he was top. Yeah. Minimum he was top 4 at LVO. Like he had a banger year. Like absolutely, you can't really argue. Jack Halfster though, the year Jack did have. Now that he won the ITC, he won the LVO. I can't remember if he went undefeated at WTC. He may have dropped one game, and he just kept unga-bungering into new dumb factions and winning super majors. It was ridiculous. Like, yeah.
Yeah, look. Maybe you can save this review for your 9th edition retrospective. But we're going to talk about you and there we go. You talk about Canada and USA trips. So after LVO, so I know you went to Vancouver. So
I did.
Quick question off the top. Is Vancouver exactly like Sydney? I've always heard the comparison. Did you find it similar?
Kinda, yeah, or maybe. Maybe more like a cold Brisbane.
Okay.
I see. Okay. I thought Toronto was quite like Sydney, to be honest.
Yeah. See, I see Toronto is very much like Melbourne, but they're very similar.
Okay. Yeah. So I will caveat my time in Vancouver was spent mostly bedridden. I was there for 5 nights, and for 3 of those nights, I did not leave my hotel room. I didn't test positive for COVID. Everyone else in the production team did. Like Val, Peter, all the other boys tested positive for COVID. I tested 6 times, didn't test positive once, but was absolutely cooked. Like could barely leave the bed. Like I managed to get my shit together enough to go and play on tabletop on the final day, which I was super grateful I got to do, because if I hadn't been able to do that, man, it was an expensive bust. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to see a hell of a lot of Vancouver, but the feel was more like a Brisbane. Like it felt pretty kicked back, felt pretty mellow. What is this Sydney comparable?
I've just always heard it as a Sydney comparison. I've never been to Vancouver. I've just always heard it like Sydney because of the harbour and how expensive stuff is, and like it's the way in which the landscape's done. That's always how I've heard it. And like
you're super right about the layout. The layout 100% is very Sydney-like. Yeah, for sure.
So there you go.
Geographically, very similar.
Yeah, also just I know that housing and stuff is stupid expensive, but everywhere in Australia is basically stupidly expensive now, so yeah, I don't think it's that comparison. But so you mentioned they play on tabletop. So what was that experience like being on play on tabletop? Obviously, people do those 40k in 40 minutes, and it's a very edited experience.
Yes.
But tell us, Adam. Tell us.
So the game started I rocked up there at 9:30 a.m. and we finished the game past 6 p.m. Because after every turn, after every activation, you do a little clip, you sit down, you talk about it a bit, they bounce back and forth. Every time you move a model, they usually get you to move it 3 times so they can take the cut that they want. So it's a lot of work. Really cool. I'm really happy with the end product. Some things I could say, but if you've seen it and you've read the comments, just know that there was another whole take of all of those things that they could have used, and they went with those ones, and they did apologize to me. I've apologized to them. It was a great time though. JT McDowell is literally one of the best guys in 40k. He is a fucking legend of a human being, and that whole studio are absolute champions.
Hell yeah. I mean, as well as Warhammer's best wrestler, right? He's got to be Warhammer's best wrestler.
Absolutely. Man. Yeah. What a man.
Good. So,
I still...
There you go.
I still want to watch some of his wrestling. I want to Google it, like watch him drop an elbow from a top rope or something. Because you meet the guy and you cannot picture it. You can hear it in his voice, like the gift of the gab and all the smack talk, and then what do they call it? Cutting a promo, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But picturing him like suplexing somebody, I need to see it.
Yeah, so for people who aren't aware, so JT McDowell like did some like amateur professional wrestling or some form of professional wrestling in a previous life, and so it's hilarious to hear about. And like I'm sure there's clips online and promos cut that he's done, which is great to see, and you got to love it. So
Absolutely,
it's fun to watch.
So yeah,
So
absolutely.
You're right.
No. Your turn.
I was gonna say. So from one studio to the next. So from there you went to Toronto. Obviously, hanging at the Val Heffelfinger household of Warhammer 40,000.
I did Warhammer Fantasy. Yeah. So I played my first game. So I flew from Vancouver to Toronto. Got picked up by the lovely Val Heffelfinger. Stayed in his beautiful house with his kid and his pregnant wife. Had a great old time. Played my first game Warhammer Fantasy in 8 or 9 years. Like a duck to water, baby, like riding a bike. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and we just talked crap, and we recorded a bunch of stuff together, and we had a great freaking time. He is just a amazing human being. And then I went from there down to mini wargaming, and I stayed in their little condos, which was fun.
Yeah, so what was that like? So obviously people who maybe, but obviously mini wargaming have their own like accommodations, like can't remember. It's not the bunker, but it's their own hotel accommodation, which you can stay at, and they're all themed out Warhammer rooms, which look awesome. So
yeah, well, so like? I stayed in the officers' quarters, which is the double bed one that looks like it's a commissar's headquarters, whatever. There's a chainsaw in a case, and there's a quills on the walls and stuff. It's above the actual studio. Man, I realized they've got it made. So I went there for 5 nights. I can't remember if it was 4 nights or 5 nights. Cost me about 600 quid American to stay there. It would have been 5 nights because it was about 110. So stayed there for 5 nights, and I paid them to make them content because we recorded like 5 or 6 battle reports. I'm like, holy crap! Did I just pay them for them to record me playing them, so them to make money off me playing them, and I paid them? I'm like, these guys are geniuses. This is amazing.
Fuck! I should have thought of this earlier.
But I mean, like, it took them like 10 years of literally being some of the first ever content creators building up that studio, building themselves up into a destination place, and then doing that. So they're reaping their own rewards, and I kudos to them. It is a genius setup. So fun.
Yeah, and what's it like? Like, what's it like staying in accommodation? Did you feel thematic? Did you feel like you were in the narrative, or was it more just a gimmick?
It was it was a gimmick, but I could see if you were staying there with your mates and it was more of an immersive thing. There was a group of yous, 100%, you could really get sucked in, especially if you were there like doing a campaign with them or something, and every morning you get up for a new battle and all this stuff. So pretty much what I did, I just messaged them and said, hey, I can come for this long or this long, and they said, yeah, if you can go for this long, that'd be good. Like, what do you play? And I'm like, I play fantasy, I play 40k, I play Horus Heresy, I play 30k, and I play these armies. And then they're just like, cool, sick. And then they just put together a schedule. And every morning I woke up, went down into the common room, and then someone rocked up and said, oh, cool, you're playing me. And they're like, what do you want to play? And then I'd be like, all right, well, we're playing 30k. I play Dark Angels, but can pretty much play anything. And they'd say, here's a 40k army, go for your life. I played Necrons versus World Eaters. Hadn't played Necrons in a very long time. Hopefully I didn't get too much wrong with that one. I don't think I did. Played a cool game that was against the Mountain. Yeah, then I played Luca a couple of times. I played fantasy against him as well. It was a good time. Yeah, had a really good time with those boys. It's you can very much tell that's become a job for them. Like the 2 guys that I played had both been there for like a decade, give or take, doing what they're doing.
Steve and Luca have been there for a while.
Day in, day out, wake up, meet guest, play game, repeat 4 or 5 days a week, and you can tell they've got it down to a fine art. But at the same time, I'm not sure if they're lacking. They're not lacking in passion, but you can definitely tell they've been doing it for a long time. If that makes sense. Like there's a bit of, it's a job.
Yeah.
You've been pushing a button in a factory for 10 years. You're not going to have the same, bada bing, bada boom, oomph. Especially when you're like, I was talking to Steve about fantasy, and he's like one of the biggest, fantasy creators in the world. And he's been playing 8th edition since 8th edition came out. So he's been playing that same rule set for a decade. That does get old. That does get boring, especially when you play it a couple times a week, every week for 10 years. That shit does 100%. But
Yeah,
they do a good job with
get
they
old.
do a good job. They do a good job with their editing, and they keep it snappy. They keep it punchy. They keep it to the point. I think they still put out a great product.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, obviously, you can comment about anything you want about mini war gaming. Like, if it's competitive or casual, but it's a fun product to watch, and people will love it. It's
Yeah.
the biggest battle report channel for a reason. They've been doing it for
Yeah.
years.
Exactly right. And their perspective is like, we may not be the highest quality because honestly, I know I came from play on tabletop, and where it took us an entire day to do one game. And I went to mini wargaming where me and Steve punched out 2 games a day, 2 games a day, 2 games a day. And we had like a long lunch. We were done early because whatever. Because, we just get in, film the battle report, takes an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we're done. And there's not much to film in the middle. So their thing is when you sign up with them, you always know what you're going to get. You're going to get just a deluge of content. They're the Adam Camilleri of content creation. There's just that F the quality, never heard of you. Quantity.
Yeah, and what they put out on the Freeview side, there's even another whole half in the bunker side of
duplicated.
Things. So, I mean, there's so much. Yeah,
just like my brand.
Perfect.
That's what I was getting at. If anything, I copied them like tenfold. I copied them. But anyway, so yes, I played about 7 games with them. I even think a few of them, I haven't seen them come out, so they might be behind the paywall or whatnot. I'm just not paying attention. But yeah, had a great time there. Then went back to Val's house, hung out for another couple of days with Val, played some Chaos Dwarves. It's been one of my heartthrob armies forever because living in Australia, you always want what you can't afford, and no chance in hell you were buying those legit 4-wheeled in Australia. You could literally buy a car. It was so obnoxious. And then what did I do from there? Then I went to New Orleans. Yeah.
There we go. You didn't go. I mean, I think you went over to Ottawa, Canada.
Oh,
right? Did you not go to Ottawa?
No.
Yes.
I didn't go to Ottawa. No, I went and hung out with Dustin Henshaw and played in the Stud or Scrub event.
There you go. That's the one. Star Scrub.
Right.
But before we go talk about Star Scrub, though, so it sounds like you've been to a bunch of battle report studios, so Mini War Gaming, Play on Tabletop, Tabletop Titans, and obviously Art of War Boys. Like, what are some of the biggest things you've picked up by playing on all these various battle report channels about like how they sort of produce things? So obviously, Play on Tabletop, very high quality, but you're filming a single movement phase 3 times in a row, and obviously a long day. But versus Mini War Gaming, where it's like procedural, go do this, and this. Yeah. What are some of the biggest things you've picked up, or what some advice you've picked up yourself?
I think the biggest thing is, especially if it's anybody out here doing the similar, there's no right or there's no wrong. All it is just making sure that you have a brand, and then making sure you 100% stick within that brand. Is Val a secret millionaire? No, I think he's just a regular millionaire. I don't know if it's a secret. The guy's bougie as hell. And so stick within your brand, but also there are 2 types of people who make battle reports. And I don't think there's many people who are unaware of this, that there are studios out there who will craft the game to make it entertaining. They will whatever they do on the table, they will make sure it's entertaining. Tabletop Tactics is one that I believe is like this. Play on Tabletop, etc. like this. Like, if there is a boring way to do something that will get you a good result, you're almost duty bound to do something that is more interesting on the tabletop, because it's not about learning or demonstrating skill. It's about entertainment. And so there are studios that exist to entertain, and there are studios that exist to teach and learn and stuff like that. Funnily enough, Mini Wargaming is the no take backsies. You make a mistake, too bad, live by it. You make a stupid choice, too bad, live by it. We're just playing the game, and they'll just videotape it. So in funny way, they're more similar to what Art of War does than they are to what Play on Tabletop does. Where Play on Tabletop, if you watch my game on Play on Tabletop, I charged my chaplain up a hill. I charged Grimaldus up a hill to fight a 3 wound Wraith Knight, also up said hill, because it was the most fun thing I could do at the time. Wasn't the right choice. It wasn't the wrong choice, but it was the right choice to be entertaining, to be like the thematic thing people want to get into and be like, this is incredible. Is he going to do it? The Mad Dog. Let's see, that kind of stuff. I could have just shot him with a multi-melter, could have just stayed down the hill and thrown crack grenades until he died. But instead, charged Grimaldus, or I think it was the Empress Champion, or both, up there to, make it something that people wanted to watch. Make it something entertaining and interesting and exciting.
Absolutely.
And then
We're playing with toy soldiers the other day. Why not make a fun thematic thing, especially for something like play on tabletop?
But that's important for their brand. You want to watch for 40 minutes of that thing, and you want to be thrilled. You want to be absolutely thrilled. But then you go to Art of War, and you want to be entranced. You want to look at them and you're not there for the. You're there to be impressed, not entertained. I guess that's a better way of saying it. Or inspired, not entertained. Be like, hey, let me study this. Let me see what these guys do that makes them so good. Because what their brand is themselves is I am good at 40k is their brand. Whereas the brand of Play on Tabletop is I am fun for you to watch. I'm worth you getting some popcorn, sitting in front of it, laughing, crying, being excited, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could argue that mini war game is sort of a hybrid between two sets. Like people are sort of playing the legit game, but the lists aren't as your 2K competitive lists, right? They're not the cutting edge meta stuff that you would see on Art of War. Like it's a bit different, and it's more fun. People who want to enjoy it will have some fun. Then I'm sure Luca and Steve or Dave or Matt would try when they do the games. Like go for the 11-inch charge. Why not have some fun?
Exactly right. And you know what they have in the past tried more competitive stuff. And try to be more on the cutting edge, and they've just seen it's just not worth it. Like whatever, we can just churn out. Eventually, like one in every 10 games will end up being a competitive one by default because we're just come to two competitive armies versus each other. Or they do tend to do a good job of trying to match up like faction power level, but then let you write whatever the hell list you want. Like versus World Eaters, I took a monolith. Angron charged it turn one.
Hell yeah.
Monolith
Hell
dead.
yeah.
That kind of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, but that's not foreign as well. That is that when you talk about lists being comped. So I know we're talking about a bunch of battle reports here, but I'll talk about Canada and America soon. But I know Tabletop Titans, I know some other Australian battle report channels, they have their lists sort of tailored so they are quite even. So that way you get a good experience. Because like the worst thing they can do is, especially when live streaming like that, is they have a list and it's over in 1 hour. Like this whole day filming it and it's a blowout. It's just miserable experience for all parties involved.
And with how many people, dude, like Play on Tabletop. So it was me versus, and of course I had my opponent, and then there was 2 guys downstairs, and I think it was 3 guys upstairs. So there's like 6 dudes and me for this one game. It has to be worth it. Like from their point of view, that game has to make money. People have to want to watch it. Like you're in too deep to make a failing product at that point. And kudos to them, they're flying. They are knocking it out of the park financially. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good for them. And but when you talked about how long it takes for you to actually film the battle report, I think they've talked about how it takes almost twice, if not triple, the amount of time to actually edit the whole thing. Like it's insane. Like so much work goes in editing.
Depends how high you want to go. So I know Play on Tabletop. Sometimes it's 100 hours of editing for 40k and 40 fucking minutes.
Wild, absolutely wild. Just to get all those jump cuts and everything situated.
Exactly right.
Everything together, it's insane. But it's a movie production, right? That's what the whole background is.
That's their shtick. Their shtick is we will have the highest class 40k anything you've ever seen, and even if you don't enjoy the game, you're going to enjoy the spectacle. Like, and so there's a lot to enjoy about what they do, and I'm here for it.
That's fantastic. But back to the traveling, vagabonding around Canada. So Starter Snotling, so you caught up with your bald-headed menace, the Gene Stealer man himself, Dustin Henshaw, friend, obviously co-host of Warhammer Meta Chasers. So what was that like playing?
Yeah, brought me into his lovely home, met his beautiful wife. He pulled together an army for me. I played Emperor's freaking Castellans of the Rift.
Yes, nice.
I played him. Yes. I played a meme list, Castellans of the Rift, because I didn't want to. I played 7 games in 5 days, like played 2 games on the Friday, and then went straight to play Starter Snotling the next day, and I was wrecked. I was so wrecked. There was some storms the night before. My last game, mini wargaming, I barely slept because it was quite loud. I don't know what it is about the direction it was coming at, but it was very loud. So I barely slept. Get up. I didn't want to play anything serious that time anyway. I'd already. So if you didn't know, my whole goal for 2020 or the 2022 season was to be number one Dark Angels player in the world. I actually haven't even show and tell time. Actually, haven't even brought
world
this out
exclusive.
Of the case. Yeah, so I ended up doing it. Got to pull it in front of me because it's square. Ended up doing it, but because of that, I really couldn't be bothered playing Dark Angels again. So I just said, like, what's one of the memes that resides in the depths of my battle scribe? Scrolled it down. So yeah, I ended up playing Castellans of the Rift. I played day one. After game two, I finished in about an hour and a half. I was so cooked. I grabbed my jacket and went to sleep under the TO table. Like, I had a kip. It was bad. Like, and
Nice.
I think I do think I was still recovering from the COVID I had the week before. So yeah, I had COVID a couple of days with Val, 5 straight days of nothing but Warhammer into a major, and I was just baked. I was just like, and not in a good way.
Damn, but no. But this is your first time playing Canadian play-place terrain. So people who aren't aware, so obviously, like the rest of the USA, they play play-place terrain, but a bit different. So they have like 2 big L's in the middle, which are fixed positions. What was that like playing that sort of different variant?
So it's like player-place terrain, but with WTC pieces. So not too dissimilar to what we play at ATC or what we play at Uprising or stuff, but you get to place it with the exception of the fixed middle. I 100% think it has to have the fixed middle if you're going to play with that stuff. Otherwise, you always get to the first drop oppression, I call it. Like the first drop advantage, where you just get to drop your first piece to your absolute advantage, and all it does is mess your opponent up. So having the fixed middle, 100% the right way to go. A big fan of the system and their pieces, like those big L's. And the L's are thick. The L's are over an inch thick. So there's no disputing if you can fight. They're 1.1 inches, specifically for the reason that there's no arguments. Can you fight through? Can't you fight through? Etc. Etc. It just cut it off at the neck. Move on. But yeah, I was a big fan of that.
Oh, there we go. That's fantastic. And obviously, look, play-place terrain maybe can be done correctly if it's done in the Canadian way and with WC stuff.
Yeah. I think the WTC terrain pieces really help because none of them are too big, but they're all influential. In one of the biggest issues I had with a bit of FLG terrain pieces is that you have, like, let's say you divide it in half, and there were some terrain sets where you had like 2 influential pieces of terrain and then a bunch of nonsense that wasn't going to impact the game, like the orc table that has the orc totem that is a playable piece, and you're like, why am I placing this? It does not do anything. Those kind of things. It's just like a dead drop. And so because it's a WTC pieces, everything's influential, everything's meaningful, everything has good keywords. Is pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, no, more than fair. And I also had a good time there. So first event started slowly. Obviously, didn't feel too great though. But you took a little nap.
Yes,
but then
yes.
Okay. Yeah, but you went across to Ottawa. And went to Ottawa, being the more eastern side of Canada, Ottawa, Montreal region. And no,
I didn't, man.
I went to Louisiana first.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I haven't done Montreal. I haven't done Quebec. I only went to Vancouver and Toronto. I didn't head up any further north. So I'm sorry if you got bad info from me, but yeah, I went from there to New Orleans.
How did you catch up with Jeremy Curie and all those jazz for the Canhammer event? Wasn't there another Canadian event you went to? There was 2 Canada events?
Nah, I didn't end up going to that one, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I had to bail, to be honest. I think that was when I was leaving. Because no. There was.
I thought you played 2 events in Canada.
It fell on another weekend. Did I play 2 events in Canada? You're bugging me out now, mate. I travel. I played at Cherokee, the Cherokee Open in the Smoky Mountains. I met up with all those. I met all those boys at LVO. I was hanging out with all the StatCheck boys at LVO. Yeah. I didn't end up going to the teams event, unfortunately. The Canhammer teams. I think I had another event on that weekend. Can't remember what it was though. Pretty sure I was important.
Adepticon. I think it was.
Oh, that's
maybe
100%. Well, I went to.
It was another one.
I went to Adepticon.
It's all right. Don't worry. We'll move on. Move on upwards. So Mardi Gras. Louisiana.
Yeah, baby. met up with 2 of my favorite people. It just so happens they're both living in Louisiana. What a coincidence. Met up and spent some time with Kicker, who is, of course, one of the event runners for FLG, and also my beautiful man Adam Abramowitz. Spent some time with him and his kids and with Kicker. So I had a phenomenal time. I made the mistake of booking. So you have the Mississippi River, and New Orleans is kind of in a horseshoe of the Mississippi. And what I did was I booked a hotel down near the water, but the thing is the parade route, and there's parades all day, every day, cut me off from the rest of the city. So I had to fight and time my way to get in and out every day. It was pretty exhausting. Also, there's no Ubers, there's no taxis. Every good restaurant has a massive booking. So, but great thing. So this is one thing that we should do in Australia. We should have more bar seating for restaurants. Yeah. I was by myself for most of this. I could just walk into fancy restaurants and be like, "Yo, I'm by myself," and people would be waiting for 2 hours for a table, and they'd seat me at the bar immediately, and I just get fed. It's such a power play.
Hell yeah! It's like the whole single ride adventure when you go to Dream World or one of those like theme park rides, like single ride only. Yeah. Happy days, you just get straight through. It's the best shortcut straight through. Ever. Just have to be a loader. That's the only problem, but otherwise it's fine.
Exactly right. So I went from New Orleans over to. I flew into Atlanta, got picked up in the car with Jack and John, drove it up to the Smoky Mountains for Cherokee Open, where I played in that event. Took Grey Knights to that one. Ended up getting knocked out by John in the 6th round to get into the finals. Stupid John and his iron hands.
The worst.
The worst.
But then your beloved Dark Angels then took out the event, but the most boring Dark Angels list.
Dude, no one was happy. Like, no one was happy. Jack got knocked out by just Unga Bunga Deathwing, and John got knocked out by Unga Bunga Deathwing. Could you imagine me being the Dark Angels player in the car headed home from that? And they're just like, your faction's full of crap. I'm like, you salty burgers, shut up. You played Iron Hands, you shut up. I can't remember what Jack played, but whatever
Zeech
ITC
Demons.
nobody, you
Zeech.
Shut up too.
It was Zeech Demons, right?
Yes, and he lost by like 2 points or something. But yeah, it was that was not a fun car ride home. But then John convinced me to play Renegade Knights, and that was a fun chat.
Yeah, there we go. It's a whole adventure. But so Jack and John obviously from Ardawar, and then did you go to the trap house straight after that then?
Yeah, I drove all the way down to the trap house, stayed in the trap house for the next, I think, 3 weeks before we headed up to an event just over the border. I can't remember what it was called, but
Florida and GT.
It was a Florida. Yeah, it was a 2-day 80-player something. I took Grey Knights again. I think I only played day 1 of this event.
Yes, and then you had to cancel day 2 because of the Ardawar Down Under booking.
Yes, yeah, because it was the only day I could get a recording for Ardawar Down Under, and I was like, there's no guarantee I'll get this done before things, so I dropped. And it's all good. I wasn't playing. This is when you. Wasn't playing for any particular reason. I was playing for the enjoyment. Like, this is one thing that I think Australians really culturally, we hate dropping. I felt so wrong dropping from an event. I'm like, I've never dropped from an event before. This is bullshit. You don't drop, you play. You just rock up and you play. Take your L's when you're with your L's, and take your W's with your dubs, and you rock up and play. And the Americans just like, oh yeah, you didn't feel like playing. You're playing to have fun, so just drop. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah. So but so like, what was that experience like? So being back in the trap house. So obviously you spent an extended period of time there in your first American holiday. What was it like being there? And what's the experience like for people who aren't aware or don't pay much attention?
So last time I didn't stay in the trap house. I was in an Airbnb like a block away. Like literally, it was a 5-minute walk away. So I was in the trap house, but I wasn't having to share bedroom walls with Richard and Nick. Not that anything untoward happened. It was just it's a different feel. John had moved out with his lovely partner Michaela, so I was staying in John's room. So I was actually in the trap house, and yeah, it was lovely. Like genuinely, everyone was the same lovely people they were when I left. The trap house has got a little bit more serious, a little more professional in kind of the 12 months since I was gone. So everyone's kind of leveled up. Their relationship with G-Dub has been generally pretty good. So they're a bit more, everyone's got to do the right things, say the right things. Not so much, toe the party line, still have your opinions, but cross your T's, dot your I's, be straight up and down with everything. Everyone has to be above board and stuff like that, which I think is only for the best, especially professionalizing our top players. But yeah, it's eat, sleep, 40k, repeat. There is no chill. There's no room for slacking. Like, there's no playing a meme list for the lulls. It's like, cool, meme at your peril. You will be dunked. You will be broken. No remorse. It's ferocious.
It was ferocious. It had the hardest RTT, right? The stream house
yes.
RTT which you played in.
Came fourth, baby. Oh, that's why. This is why I didn't go to Canhammer, because the Streamhouse RTT was on the same weekend. That's why.
There we go. We figured it out.
Yeah. Because I had so Val wanted me to go up. He was going to run a freaking fantasy GT that weekend, and I'm like, sorry Val, I can't do that because I was going to go to Canhammer. And then I looked at the thing for Canhammer. I'm like, shit, it's the same weekend as teams. So I'm like, sorry Canhammer, I can't do that either. But yeah, I played Grey Knights to that one. And I got dunked by Richard Siegler twice, but beat Nick Nanavati, beat Quinton. Yeah, had a really good run. Ended up coming fourth. Very happy with that for that level of competition. Very proud of that. But still salty, Richard.
Goddamn Siegler. What a jerk.
Mate.
Just the worst.
Not okay.
What?
Yeah, just the worst.
But yeah, I think it sounds like they've matured a lot. So obviously, I guess like very similar to like the esports background, having that trap house. Like when you're all young 20-year-olds, I know they're not that young, but you spend like a year or so like just being bums almost, and then as you figure things out, they get more stable income and work their shit out. Like you work it all out. So
first thing I did when I walked in there last year, it was like, dude, why don't you guys have a maid? Like this is a business space, and you could just put it on the business. Get the house clean. Like this is you live and you work here. Up your standards of living, and they really have. They've got a cleaner. They've got a couple of ladies living there now, and they ain't going to put up with the kind of shit that they were like before. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good enough. You know what I mean? It wasn't like teenage pile. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like grown men living together, mutually respectful of each other's space kind of stuff.
It was more college dorm than it was anything else, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
College dorm vibes.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what was it like? Like, obviously, how do you describe that? So, eat, sleep, rave, but 40K repeat. Like, what's that like mantra like? And like, I guess, what's it like being in that ecosystem? Do you like? Does it make you want to play 40K more, or does that part of the burnout which made you like, nah, I don't want to do 40K full time?
I find it. No, so they weren't part of that, and I want to do 40K full time. Yeah, part of that was all the reasons to come home. Like, I suppose the 2 years that I spent in COVID, was it just Domino's in Mountain Dew first time around? Wasn't that bad, but wasn't that much better. Like the boys would be looking, because I don't know what you know about the Art of War boys, but if they are professional 40K players, it's not by much. The margins and the amount of money they get paid and what they live off is not a lot. They are not doing, they're doing well, like they're getting enough to get by, but they're not kicking back on their laurels. They're not making a huge amount enough money to be comfortable in any way. So it was like looking through things for deals. Oh, cool, we can get Mexican delivered, and we'll get 2-for-1s and all this stuff, and then they'd have Mexican for like 3 nights in a row because they got takeaway one night, and they're like making it fit as much of the week as they could. This is why the pub sub bets were so big, but that's a different story. It's a bit of a roller coaster for me. It's kind of like, as soon as I wasn't on the WTC team for 2023, I lost a bit of oomph. Like I lose a bit of drive to a big push to want to be better and want to do well. So it ends up that I want to play 40K to enjoy it, but you can't quite do that in that house. You can't quite do it because you won't enjoy it. They'll just curb stomp you, and you're not going to have a good time. So I actually used it as a bit of professional development. Like I actually worked really closely with Nick, especially on some things about my game that I wanted to improve. I got some really good feedback from a couple of games I had at Uprising about just kind of sloppy play, just because I was playing Raven Wing that kind of move infinite distances, so I was just pushing stuff around when I knew it could make it. And some players were just like, dude, you played at WTC, like I know you can do it, but you should show do it, you should just do it properly. And also, like, there's a bit on the if you listen to my shorts, Sam, I have had some more recent struggles with mental health than maybe I admit publicly. Like my ADHD has kind of resurfaced for the first time in a good couple of years. It's kind of actively being a detriment to some of my 40K. My brain is moving too fast, and I'm a more haphazard. Like one of the things I used to pride myself on, especially in 7th edition, was always knowing exactly what I was going to do with every model and every unit before I touched them. I knew where everyone was going to move, what they were going to shoot, what objectives they were going to do, what points they were going to score, what charges they were going to make before I touched anything. And that, more than anything, has been something I have fundamentally lost from my game. I can no longer look at the table and project what I want to accomplish. I get muddled, I get messed, I get confused. And so Nick and all the boys, they really helped me slow down and just make my decisions very deliberate, very poised again. And you can see it. The game I played against Nick Nartavati is one of the best games of 40k I've ever played in the Trap House RTT. Like, go check that out if you yeah.
Yeah, I think it's behind the paywall. That's obviously join the war room. You able to see it. But you talked about they made you slow down, or like figure stuff out. But what was it they told you to sort of help? So for people who maybe do get befuddled or can't plan things out, like look, I mean, everyone in Warhammer has their own special thing. Like sometimes they get confused or they can't plan things out. Like, what advice did Nick give you to help it all out, or help try and work it?
Yeah, he said. So a big thing I was missing was identifying win cons. So I would start the game identifying what the win condition was. And for those of you who don't know, those are the terms upon which you win the game. Like, this unit has to be dead. I have to win the primary, I have to win the secondary. I have to make sure they don't get a 15 on this secondary or whatever. I have to push, I have to defend, etc. Whatever. So it's identifying a win con. And then starting in such a way that would go after it, and then just losing it, just ADHDing, losing it. Because we would, like me and Nick would start a game, or I'd start a game with Jack or John, and I'd be like, okay, I think I need to do this to win, and then my actions would in no way reflect my intention. There's a lack of congruence. My thought patterns were right, but my hands weren't doing the right things with the models. And so they pretty much just tried to say, how to make sure you are deliberate, you are focused. You got to focus on your game plan and not do anything unnecessary. Because what it was it's a bunch of unnecessary thought. This could do that. This could go there. This could do this. This could. One of the things about 9th edition, because everything can kill everything, charge everything, hurt everything. The amount of possibilities for units just exponential for what any one unit can accomplish at any one time. And because of that, I was getting lost. Especially I was playing Grey Knights. Every unit can do everything. They all shoot, psychic, move, interceptors. Shoot, psychic, move fast, charge, good. They do everything. And it's a phenomenal unit on the table, but it's a bad unit for Adam Camilleri because I need guardsmen. They do this one thing and then they're dead. Cool. Fantastic. ADHD neutral.
Oh, there we go. That's the solution, right? But you tried to do it AZTC, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. But so that's good though to hear some advice about like taking that step back. Obviously, think about your game plan, but then try and replicate it on the tabletop. So maybe I think I know one thing. I think Michael Timpey. So he was part of Best Imperium. Sorry, apologies, but he played
High Lords of Terror.
High Lords of Terror. Apologies. But one thing I always heard him do is like, and maybe some advice to people is he would always clock himself to a minute or two and think out his whole command phase. Like he would think out what he needs to do and just execute. And I think I'm pretty sure Siegler and other great 40k players does the exact same thing and plan it out. But obviously things sometimes happen, like dice skew, and it's like, oh crap.
Exactly. And so the thing is, I got to a point where I could then reimagine what I wanted to accomplish. And then the mess, the ADHD fuzz would get in the way and I would lose sight of the objective. And I'd start doing things unnecessarily, losing units when I didn't have to. Adam hates toolbox units. No, I need to get... I don't hate them. They expose what is wrong with my game. And they're actually kind of good for me. They're a point of growth. Well, I want them to be a point of growth. I want them to be a reason I get better at 40k, not a reason I'm worse at 40k. And for a good time, they were a reason I was worse at 40k. And it's very interesting. So the WTC list, I took Grey Knights to WTC, and that didn't bother me at all. Do you know why? Because they didn't shoot. It wasn't a shooting arm. It was into armor contempt. I didn't take any shooting because none of their shooting was good. Because only had like Rend 1, Rend 2. It didn't touch the sides. So it was only essentially it was a psychic and combat army. So it was just movement, cast a smite to make the charges. Very simplistic on those terms. As soon as I added the shooting phase in, it actually was the level that took me to mess. I got messy. and that messiness just lived in the front of my head. I suppose Black Knights is another good example for Dark Angels. I played with 20 Black Knights at Uprising, and they were a reason I got messy. They're not the cause of it. I'm the cause of it. My mental health is my responsibility, and it's not my miniature's fault. But yeah, it was a reason that it became a confluence of choice, and my brain couldn't take it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously you're looking to improve it and you're working on it, but like that makes sense. Like when you have so much options and availability, it's like, oh, what do I do? And I'm sure, like obviously with Grey Knights, you have teleport assault where you score 5 points for killing a single unit. Like,
yeah,
you want to try and do it in shooting phase or psychic phase instead of maybe that more melee style. And then when Brave Wing likes to do melee and shooting, but more shooting, you have all the options.
Yep.
So okay, that makes sense. So obviously you spent some time in America and Canada as well as myself. What is like one of your favorite stories or one of the most funniest experiences you've had being an international foreigner over there? I know you talk about your very first taxi drive over there. That was an experience. But is any other fun stories?
So one of my things I've always wanted to do, I don't know if you know what a muffaletta is.
Sorry.
It's a New Orleans sandwich. It's an Italian sandwich from New Orleans, which is very interesting. It's like a big, it looks like a burger bun. Like it's got sesame seeds, but it's like that. It's huge. It's really big. And then they cut it in half. They dip it in the whole thing in olive oil, and then they put like just crap loads of cheese and like meats on it, and cold cut meats, and then like a salad of olives and capers and stuff on top. It's freaking delicious. And one of the things I always wanted to do was to watch one of the big parade days while eating a muffaletta, hanging outside. And so I got a muffaletta, went over to, because all the families, they kind of like section off where they're going to watch the parades with their kids and their whatever and their wider family. And I just so happened to get in before the family did, even though there's one or two there. I was like, are you guys going to be full? I just kind of slid it in there. And I kind of got adopted by this family. They were all dentists, by the way. It was like a bloke, his two brothers, their dad and uncles, and they were all freaking dentists. The wives, the husbands, everybody was dentists or dental nurses, dental industry. And so I was chatting with them, and I was wearing my WTC 2019 jersey, because the colors of Mardi Gras are purple, yellow, and green. And so I had green and gold on. So just get some purple beads, and you got all the colors. Naturally I had the guns out, gotta have the guns out. And I was chatting to them, and these beautiful ladies dressed up like flowers walked past. And so I ate my muffaletta, I was hanging out, and of course they knew I was an Aussie and I was just there visiting. And one of the ladies points out and says, "This guy's an Aussie, he's not from here." And one of the lovely, beautiful ladies dressed like a flower walks up and freaking kisses me in the middle of the parade, just like freaking full gobs me. I was just like, I've got a missus and all this stuff. I'm like, is this kosher? Is this supposed to happen? And then she takes my hat off and puts this flower in my hair, and then just keeps going on her merry way. We take a little snap and for the parade's Instagram, and off she goes. I'm like, do I need a COVID test now? Like, do they just like, do they do this all the way down the street? I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. And all the blokes are trying to high five me, and they're like, I don't know. They set me up. They set me up 100%. But yeah, I did not put my hand up for this. This is absolutely out of nowhere. So yeah, that was a funny one from this year.
That's an experience to say the least. That's yes. I'll take what you will from it. That is an experience. So look, Mardi Gras is full of fun and exciting things. Both sandwiches, families of dentists, and just randomly getting flour in your hair. So there you go.
It was
everything in between.
Hilarious. Yeah.
So after spending time at the Trap House, what happened from there? So I know you went to Atlanta, Georgia. More? Did you spend time with more Paul Murphy?
So I went to Cherokee, back to the Trap House for a bit, and then I went to Adepticon, I think, next. Yeah, I think it was Adepticon. Then I went back for a couple of weeks. Then I went to Georgia. So caught a bus to Orlando, and then flew from Orlando to Adepticon. Streamed with War Games Live. Did the singles championships with War Games Live with lovely Joe. Plenty of memes out there if you're looking for them. I did so many dumb things on camera. People kept buying us food. Like people in the chat would have food sent to us, which was legitimately a dream come true for a streamer, not having to go anywhere or do anything, just kind of lie down between takes. And yeah, I was able to call. I think it was 2 Euro boys. It was Arn Zert.
Arn from he's from Breaking Heads, or he's part of the Breaking Heads crew. Then there was Nassim.
And Nassim Fashane with it was Iron Hands versus Votan in the final. I was able to call that lovely game, which was over in an hour. And thank you very much, boys. Much appreciated. Because Adepticon is 2x4. It's 2 days, 4 games each day. And me and Joe were like, this is not okay. People who complain about the Adepticon terrain being barren, me and Joe were like, thank you, boys. End each other immediately. Just end each other. We're done. The voices are cooked. We're exhausted. Don't want to look at shit anymore. Just blow each other up. And they obliged. It was much appreciated, lads.
Oh, well, I mean, people did want to see 18 airbrushed Void Reavers, right? So they just thought, just have no train, just get people blow each other away anyways.
That's right. That's right. At least we're done quick. Our memes, memeing out. But yeah, it was beautiful to stream in person with Joe again. Last year when I was there, I streamed the New Orleans Open with Joe, which was the first time I've been to New Orleans and the first time I met Joe. So I got to stream that with him. I'll be streaming WTC with Joe this year. So
I was going to ask, so what's it like streaming with Joe? So obviously he's sort of a bit of a different take. So obviously he streams the whole thing, but has so many different camera angles, and he commentates from time to time, but has mainly player mics. Like obviously your style is generally obviously interrupting, I'd say commentating.
No, you were right the first time. See what I just did there? I interrupted. But no, Joe is a very amazing soul. He's a great guy, but he's very particular. He's a nerd through and through. He's very particular about how what product he wants to and what he wants to put out there. And so it's when you're on Joe's show, you're playing by Joe's rules. And so my interruptions are kept to a minimum. I only want to have something very pertinent and only between like takes. Like you talk during someone, you let them do their command phase, talk during their movement phase, let them do their, let them listen to them during their shooting phase, talk a little during the charge phase, listen during the combat phase. You get a kind of a rhythm to what Joe wants you to do. And so there are, I've talked about this a lot. I don't know how long you've been around, but I've been commentating on stuff since I think it was 2017, which as far as I can tell, I think I'm the oldest or one of the oldest stream commentators in the world. Joe,
you're pretty old. I'll give you that. So.
Thank you. I am pretty old. Cheers. Me and Diffie just chucked a mic and a camera on top of a table at ATC in I think 2018. Or was it 27? I can't remember. 2017 or 2018. And it's just been commentating ever since. And there are 2 types of commentary. And when I was doing a bunch of research, trying to get good at this thing that I'd pretty much semi-invented at the time. Well, I didn't have any 40k players to copy, so I kind of just had to figure out what the hell I wanted to do this. And I watched a bunch of footy, so AFL, rugby, soccer commentary. I watched esport commentary. I watched all sorts of stuff. And my first style was the esports style. Was like was Dota, Hon, the games, StarCraft. It was kind of like a bit of a rhythm to it. You got to give the peaks and troughs to the game. And so there's 2 types of things that people commentate that I was able to identify. There's commentary styles that are just able to tell you what is happening on the field. Basketball is a perfect example. There's no need to make basketball more interesting. What you were seeing is already interesting enough. It's action packed. It's quick. It's fun. All you need to do is just tell people who's got the ball and what they're doing with it. That's it. He did a jump shot. He got it in. Kudos to him. They're up by X next points. Off we move. Off we go. And the ball's back in. Blah blah blah. Keeps going. But then you have games like golf, billiards, darts, which is probably more comparable to what we do because it's a similar pacing, where the commentary has to uplift the action, has to detail.
Sure.
Has to tell you why you should give a shit about what you're watching. I have to make who you are watching seem like absolute savant superstars, because I want you guys to care about what they're doing, find what they're doing interesting and nuanced and poignant and cool even. But that is not Joe's. Joe has got his production to to cricket's a perfect example, Dale, where the commentary has to be the point of interest. Like so there's a reason you never go to the cricket by yourself, right?
Because it's boring and long, and you don't have any mates.
Oh, dude, it's so boring.
No.
But if you go with 6 mates, get tanked and just talk shit, and then whenever they hit the ball, good, you're like, hey, and you go back to talking to your mates. It's a great time. If you're watching it from home, 100% needs commentary. 100% needs commentary. It could be, otherwise it's boring as shit. 40k is much the same. If But with the way Joe does it, because he's been able to add that spectacle to it, it doesn't need it as much. It doesn't need to be uplifted as much. And so he's found the perfect medium, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty great, and like obviously it allows the players to talk themselves. And when they're educational, and when you have very good players who explain what's going on in game state, he'll let them talk and explain the game state, right? Which is fantastic. But then when it's a bit slower, or maybe things aren't as well articulated, it's maybe not the people and personalities that they can't mesh sometimes, and so Joe then interrupts and adds that a bit as well, reacts to the chat, and the chat sort of provides that input. So
I'm really interested to see how we go with WTC because I'm not sure we're allowed to mic players. And if we're miking players, can they speak English? Are they going to be worthless? Are we going to be able to extrapolate what they're saying?
What are you talking about, Adam? The WTC official language is English. Everyone speaks English, right? I mean, I heard Skark from Poland Skark from Poland speaks perfect English. It's like
fluid.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah,
fluid.
That's perfect. That's gonna make he's fluent as English as you need to be to play 40k at WTC for a million years. Essentially, as Skark, he's like, I shoot this, it dead, etc. But that's the kind of stuff that's the kind of hurdles we're gonna have to come to. Like we have a great gift that in English-speaking countries we can genuinely pick matchups of players who can speak good. And if they can't, well, I'll be there to butter up. But how's Joe going to count when they can't speak good at all? Will he let me do my thing, or is he going to rein me back in? We'll see. It's going to be fun.
Well, it's wait and see. But I know there'll be a bunch of other foreign streams as well, which is to be very exciting.
Yes.
I can't wait to find out more about it.
So generally, what me and Joe have already agreed on is that we're going to keep it to English-speaking nations where possible. So England, Scotland, Ireland, Australia's, America's, of course, America. He's an American streamer. He's going to have to do what he does for his audience. His audience is predominantly American, so mostly Team America. I'll be like swinging for the fences to get Team Oz on at every opportunity. But yeah, we'll see what we do.
It's exciting times, and I think a little sneak preview. I'm planning on doing some WT stuff in the horizon, so I've got some plans already. So we'll get some stuff going. So, anyways, but Adam's American adventures. Okay, let's get back on topic. Another. So what happened after Adepticon? So after Adepticon, it was oil done in 4 hours. US Metal Soft confirmed. What happened?
I hung out, did a bunch of cool stuff, met a bunch of my G-Dub icons, hung out with some playtesters, stuff like that. Pretty much talked some crap. Asked them pointedly if they've been stealing my ideas. I swear to God, I invented Armor of Contempt like 2 years ago on FTN. I mean, I said it was for Terminators. Like Terminators needed to feel like Terminators again, and like Terminator armor should decrease all incoming rend by AP by 1 or rend by 1, and then we get Armor of freaking Contempt a year later. I know you, G-Dub. You're stealing my ideas in my sleep. It's getting in my brain. But anyway, no, it was just fun stuff. I mean, just poking fun at him. And then I flew back to Orlando, then went back to the Trap House for a couple of weeks. Then after that, I said my goodbyes and jumped in a bus and went to a little town called Savannah, which is extremely interesting. Really interesting town. It was one of the first settlements. It was unfortunately one of the 2 major slave ports. So it's got a lot of effed up history, you can assume. But it also wasn't burnt to the ground in the Civil War like a lot of other towns in that region in the South. And so it's got really beautiful old architecture and buildings.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, that's great. I'll obviously be able to visit. So Savannah, Georgia, by the way, for people. So Georgia, full of peaches. That's what it's known for in the South. What did you get to? So was that where you caught up with Paul Murphy and your long-time narrative host?
Yeah, so I spent a long weekend. I spent like 3 nights in Savannah, and then caught the bus to Atlanta, and then hung out with Paul Murphy for his birthday. It was another phenomenal time, and that's where I got sick for the second time. So I got sick. So 2 weeks before this, I got sick. Had a lot of discomfort in my abdomen area, and I went to see a doctor, and they said you've either got a prostate infection or kidney stones. And I'm like, well, I don't think I eat bad enough to get kidney stones, so probably a prostate infection. And so the guy prescribed me like antibiotics for a prostate infection, and I took those, and I felt fine for like the 10 days I was on those. Got to Atlanta. And then the day after, so I hung out with Paul, had a great freaking time. And then the day after that, I was like the sickest I'd been in my life. I don't think I've ever in my life felt like I was going to collapse or faint, but that's I had that for about 6 hours. I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't think. Like my cognitive ability was cooked, and I was like in a really bad way. Ended up in the ER. Like I ended up in emergency in Atlanta. I had kidney failure. My kidneys were going septic because what I had was, we assume I picked up a UTI somewhere in my time, either most likely at Adepticon, probably off a dunny in Adepticon, mistreated it, and that UTI had traveled up into my kidneys, and I had like a severe kidney infection, and so I ended up, in the ER in a really bad way in Atlanta.
Holy shit! Yeah, that's horrible.
Mm.
Yikes! But you're here now, and like everything's
I
okay.
am.
Like obviously, it's like bloody hell. I'm sure it was a scary time for multiple reasons. Scary time. But how was it like navigating the American health system? Obviously, you hear all this shit about it. Like, was it like, were you like panicking the whole time you're there? Like, fuck, I have to deal with like, how much is it going to cost me? How much is it going to set me back? Or you're like, I don't care right now.
Like, so as soon as I got in there, they triaged me within like the first hour of getting into the ER. And I don't really know what they gave me, because of course it was like, I know what we call medications in Australia, and a lot of them are different names for America and Australia. But they gave me a couple of pills, and I felt like I was on cloud nine. I was high, whatever they gave me. I think they're probably Valium or temazepam, because I was just sitting there like, I'm fine, I could go home. But then I was like, no, you have to. Funnily enough, Jeff Robinson came to mind as a guy who had medical complications, didn't have them looked after, and unfortunately, a really great man passed away. And so I said, "Shut the fuck up. Just money. I don't. I have. I never go anywhere without top tier travel insurance, tippy top tier travel insurance. And so while I was in the ER, figuring out if I was going to stick around, I was sussing out whether or not my travel insurance was likely to cover it. And I came to the conclusion that it was maybe, but most likely yes. So most likely yes. And so I was like, well, shut the fuck up. Look after yourself well, stick around and find out what's up. So I was there for 6 hours, in the waiting room for 6 hours. And then I ended up getting taken into the back and looked after for just under 2 hours. Who wants to take a guess how much that cost me for about an hour and 45 minutes of medical care in an American hospital?
I'm guessing, like, what was the bill? What you actually had to get pay?
The bill.
What was it? The bill? I'd say like 10, 15 grand American.
No, not quite. Not quite. No, you're not quite that bad. It was just under 7,000 American.
Oof. But like
for an hour and 45 minutes of care.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's insane. But
yeah,
obviously, did the travel insurance cover that all fully, or cover?
I waited until the last second. I got home. I waited till I went back to work, made until my first pay came in, and now I've paid it, and I'm gonna I'm pretty confident they're gonna pay it, but I'm still waiting for them to send me some paperwork through to fill out for the claim. But yeah, we'll see. If they don't, I'm gonna go after them. I'm like gonna lawyer up and go after them if they don't pay it. I only paid it because they said they would. I wasn't gonna. I was just like, well, I'll wait till they send the debt collectors if I gotta, before I pay this.
Sure.
And if I know I'm not going to get the money back, we'll see if they're willing to chase me across the other side of the world on very little information to track me down. You've got a foreign phone number, a SIM card that I put in the bin as soon as I got on the plane to come back home, and an email address I can just delete. Come at me, bro. But it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do.
And you never know. I think the biggest would be issue, we can talk about this later, but your visa could be attached with your debt per se.
Spot on.
How things are.
Passports.
Yes. Yeah, the worst thing you don't want to happen is that you arrive in the US and you get
cuffed.
You can get cuffed, basically. It's like
cuffed at the airport. Your crimes
not the way you want to.
Gotcha.
Not the thing you want to do with LVO 2024, right? You rock up. Yeah. So no.
I did the right thing. I've paid it now, and I'll wait. But what did happen was I was supposed to meet my partner in Fiji for our anniversary, and we had to pull the plug on that. So I had to come home straight away because I wasn't going to risk getting sick and stuck there, and then it going from $7,000 to 70. If I was Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy to think. If it's $7,000 after an hour and 45, if you were stuck there for like a weekend, Jesus, how do they do it? I don't understand.
Oh, yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame, but hopefully they can work it all out and like thank God like some people get health insurance and hopefully you'll pay it. It's an whole other topic.
So went from Atlanta. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of Atlanta. Much the same as Vancouver. That was kind of a wash. I just kind of was bedridden. Hung out with Paul again. We had a lovely couple of dinners still, and then headed off to Portland, Oregon. For my last weekend, which I spent with the lovely Mitch Pelham on his beautiful home on the coast with his lovely partner Lisa. So that was really nice. That was a really nice kind of wind down, couple of nights of rest, just kind of taking easy walks on the beach, that kind of stuff. And then
lovely.
And then the Odyssey to get home. I wasn't joking when I said it was like nearly 40 hours to get home. So I got up at 5 a.m. in Portland, I think I was in Washington, drove to Portland, Oregon, 4 hours from Mitch's house, jumped on a plane from there to Vegas with a couple hour layover, from Vegas to LA with an 8 hour layover. LA to Fiji, because I didn't cancel that part of the trip. I just changed my dates home from the back end to the front end. I had a 12-hour layover. 12 hours. Oh. So I've got pictures in my phone of me like just so out of it, like still recovering on super strength antibiotics, like just dead, just like a corpse with a pina colada on a Fiji beach, just like.
Well, at least you were able to make it through Fiji. Experienced a little bit, but obviously not the whole that you had imagined. But at least you could say you've been to Fiji. So there we go.
Pretty funny. And then then the flight home, and it was really funny. I was so absolutely wrecked that I didn't get jet lagged on the way back. Like once I got to Australia, I wasn't jet lagged. I was so annihilated. I just went back into like a normal sleeping routine.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a trip. That's a trip. Just get yourself so sick or so tired that you don't have jet lag. Perfect.
Get a severe kidney infection, almost go septic, heavy duty antibiotics, then stay awake for almost 3 days. Simple, anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. Well enough, that was the trick I used to always do when I traveled back and forth. The Sydney to Dallas flight, I used to always take it was like 16 hours or whatever it is. That's what I always did the night before, and always sort of try and get myself into US time zones or Australian time zones, like just not sleep and then sleep on the plane when I need to. And it worked out most of the time. Like it's still a bit fucked, like you're still a bit all over the shop, but it helps a bunch, I found, instead of trying to do the normal thing and you're just completely wrecked. So, but it's
exactly right.
Whole other thing. So well, what a time. I mean, what advice would you give to any Australian? So obviously, Australia's best athlete, Matt Marasoli's going over for some holidays and stuff like that. But what advice would you give to Australians or any listeners who want to go do some Warhammer 40K vagabonding around the US? Like any things you should or shouldn't do?
Go for it. Do not let anything be an impediment. Don't let time zones, geography. Like only thing that might be an impediment is coin. It's not cheap. You can do some things to make it cheaper, but just go for it. Just do it. It's just so many amazing people. I kept saying this to everybody over there because so many Americans wanted to know what I thought of the place, and I kept saying to them, I wish you guys treated each other as good as you treat me. As good as you treat people like me, tourists and visitors. You guys would give us the freaking skin off your back, but you shit on each other nonstop all day, every day. So do what that means. We get to live it up. Go over there. Enjoy yourselves. Go nuts.
Yeah. As much as you can talk about America, like it is a fun place to visit, and there's a lot of good people there, and you enjoy a lot of things. And it's a fun time. So
there's nowhere I've been that I wouldn't go back to except for San Fran, because I've been there like 3 times now. So don't want to go there again. But apart from that, it's all fun. It's all a good time. Wonderful people everywhere you go. Say g'day so people know you're an Aussie, because everyone will want to chat to you and say hello and ask you. Yeah. Same with New Zealanders. I don't know what you guys say. I'm sure it's all right too, but whatever.
Hey bro, that's about it. Something like that.
Hey bro. But no, go for it. Just travel. Just go. There's so much 40K out there. Or whatever game you may play, whatever you might enjoy, and everyone wants to meet you, wants to know you, wants to enjoy it with you.
Absolutely. Just get prepared to be asked, how do you pronounce this, or how do you say banana or aluminum, or what do you call this and that? Like
the C word. no American will say the C word, but they all want to hear me say the C word, and you too probably.
Yes,
Okay, can you say
absolutely.
the forbidden word for us? I'm like, can I say the forbidden word for you?
See you next Tuesday. There you go.
That's right. That's right. You just drop them like they're hot, and then you got to teach them about how if I call you effing C, effing SC is the worst. It's the worst. But if you're effing good C, it's the best.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the best compliment and the worst compliment. One word difference.
All about the adjectives.
That's it. That's it.
It's all about the adjectives.
That is so fascinating.
Too good, too good. I've spent a lot of time now, so it's hour 25, but we've got one last question before we wrap things up. So it's come from Dale. So the Dale Summer, the man, the myth, and legend himself. So as a fellow content creator, so obviously you create a bunch of content. How do you find the balance between a talking head as well as being on the tabletop experience and having the credentials to back up the chat you have, the chats you have? Like, do you find yourself like have the imposter syndrome, being able to like say I'm good at 40k, but also be able to talk about it, or have you not had this issue at all?
I've had this issue. I have this issue. I always have this issue. Imposter syndrome is a huge thing for me. It's really weird. So me and Nick hang out a lot, and Nick is like me but with credentials, I guess. We're both kind of talking heads, analysts, play the game. We both commentate now. We both do podcasts. We both kind of do all these things. And I have no comparison to Nick Nanavati. We might do the same things professionally, but his credentials are like through the freaking roof compared to mine. Multiple WTC wins, ITC championships, LVO wins, Adepticon wins, all these just bang, 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 wins. Whereas I'm like, at best, I'm a top fiver. I'm a perpetual top fiver on my best days at majors in Australia, let alone the multiple 100-player, 500, 600-player events in America. And so I get monstrous imposter syndrome like all the time, especially with the huge amount of privilege I have in my life of being able to go and travel and do these things, be financially, good enough to go and do all these crazy things, to just have a dream and just accomplish them. And phenomenal support from family, friends, communities, patrons, partners, pets, etc. So the way I manage it is to tell my brain to shut the fuck up and just focus on what I want to accomplish. And it's not easy. I mean, some days are worse than others. Some days I get really down. Like after some of the feedback I got at Uprising about how sloppy and acknowledging how sloppy I was at points, I got pretty down on myself, being like, this is an army I've played all year and I'm still shit at it. Like I'm still giving people sometimes some bad interactions, and I get really down on myself about that. But then at times I'm like, I've just got to roll with the punches. Just accept yourself as you are. You're not going to change anything by beating yourself up. Also acknowledging that nobody can hurt me like I can. There's no person's words or deeds is going to do me as much harm as me beating me up. So that's the worst thing I can do. Especially being a content creator in Australia hasn't been an easy road for me at times. There's been times where people have wanted to see me fail. People have tried to make me fail. Been a lot of people who've said a lot of stuff behind my back. People who say they're friends don't act like friends when the chips are down, etc., etc. That's fine. Like that's totally fine. I don't ask anybody to change. Just accept me as I am, please. And I'm very fallible. Everyone in 40k is. There's very few Nick Nanavatis who have credentials to be the same. And if we only want Nick Nanavatis to be the content creators, like people who have the credentials to back it up, we're just not going to have any content.
Absolutely not. Absolutely,
it's not realistic. Yeah. It's not realistic that only the best players get to talk about competitive 40k. That's just a load of shit. So accept that you are special and unique, and you have an opinion that is valid. And if people don't like it, hey, they can not watch it. They don't have to. Like, it's not like there's a TV where it's on every channel and reality TV is inescapable and crap. Just it's a podcast on the internet. Whatever. What was the rest of the question? There was another bit in there.
Yeah, so obviously trying to work through the imposter syndrome. How do you have you having this issue? But how do you? What's some of the best spots and worst spots you've had, and trying to find that good equilibrium between like having the credentials on the table, but also being an influencer, of as much of an influencer in 40k you can be.
So it's been really weird. So I had a time where the imposter syndrome was really loud, and I got really thirsty to get back to my best at 40k, and I didn't. I straight up didn't. Like I fell short, and that was really hard of being like, cool, I want to get back to winning GTs. I want to win a major. I want to get back to my best, my absolute best. And I didn't. Yeah. The game had somewhat moved past me. I couldn't just go and pick up, the best army available to me and walk in and smash everybody. Like I kind of used to be able to do late 7th edition, early 8th edition, but mostly because Guard was extremely good at the time, and I could just pick up any old Guard army to counter the meta and just push everybody, straight in to the box. But yeah, the game has gotten more professional. The game has gotten more better. Like the baseline of competitive players is so much higher than it used to be that I have to measure my own expectations of myself. Like I'm not the best player in Australia. I'm on my best, at my absolute best. Maybe I'm 10th. Maybe. When my faction is the best faction in the game, maybe I'm 10th. When Dark Angels is number 1 and I'm playing Dark Angels, maybe I'm up there when I'm in my best form possible. But that is very rare. Stars need to align. I need to have the right energy, the right motivation, all these things. And so just realize it's a roller coaster. If you are a dedicated 40K fan, if you're a dedicated 40K competitor and player, accept there are going to be ebbs and flows to your mojo. You're going to have times where you're like, shit, I really want to go out and smash some 40K and just play. And other times where you're like a drunkard who's being forced to have another drink when you're hungover as hell, and you're just like, no, anything but that. And then it's up to you which one you put first. You can put playing the game, because when your energy your mojo for the game is at a low, you got to choose whether you're a player or a content creator, because sometimes you don't always have energy for both. And yeah, most of the time I'm a content creator first, because frankly, people pay me to be a content creator. People don't pay me to play the game. If someone is in my, sorry, someone, they're not going to. No one's going to pay me. And this is why a patron was really important for my content creation. Because I am beholden to people, and somehow that works with me and my responsibilities, because I will not miss. If someone is paying me for an hour or 2 hours of nonsense a week, you're getting your nonsense. No ifs, no buts, baby. You're getting it. So yeah, that's been a big thing for me. So it turns out I had to choose, and a lot of my, I guess, WTC aspirations have been lost in that decision as well. Being like, if I had to choose, when the chips are down and the bucket and the well is dry, I'm a content creator before I'm a player.
But yeah, but with that sort of like decision, obviously you made that choice, you made that sacrifice. Like, I'm going to forgo my playing career per se. Like, obviously still get to play a bunch, but I'm going to forgo my best playing career to make content and to do other things. And that's life, though, right? You only have so much time, and how much you can dedicate, right?
Exactly right. Oh, you mean I don't have to put thousands upon thousands of study and practice into like trying to get on the WTC team again, but I get to go and enjoy it almost as much as you guys and stream it? This is fine. I won't get the glory. I won't get the glory. I won't get the kudos and the holy shit, you did something incredible. But at the same time, I can live with it. Yeah. I've come to terms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think obviously, like for everyone, like obviously, this is a hobby first and foremost for 99% of us, right? We do it to blow off steam and enjoy it. So, and we only have so much time in our lives that we can dedicate to it, and it's okay to accept that. It's like when you look at some people winning multiple GTs or majors, it's like, of course you want to be that person. Like, who doesn't want to win the GT or a major? But you look at like, what do they sacrifice per se? I know it looks bad, let's say sacrifice. So what do they sacrifice to get there? They sacrifice time with their families, sacrifice time with their friends, or sacrifice doing something else to get there, and that's completely okay. And it's those choices made. So
100%. There's a give and take. Like anything, you got to dedicate yourself to be good. Like you can't. There's so Richard Siegler, and like there's so few people who I've met who I just think could stop playing the game and then for like a year pick it up and still be like almost as good as they were. Like those people are so few and far between. Those natural savant talents. And you know what? Fuck them. Like whatever. You don't impress me. You're already good at it. Your talent is innate. You're not good at the game. You're good at whatever. Anyway, it's the people who have to work really hard. People who work their asses off, the ones that inspire me. Because people who are naturally good at stuff, whatever. Not impressive.
But who's someone who's impressive? You are, Adam. So Adam, before we close things out, give us your final plug. So where can people find you if they've never heard of you before?
All right. If you haven't heard of me before, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you've enjoyed my absolute ramblings. And if you haven't been inspired, you can, or if you want to be uninspired, you can join me over on Art of War Down Under, which is a lovely review podcast I do every week over on the Competitive 40K Network. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, all those good places. It is a 2-part podcast. The first part comes out Tuesday mornings at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I think is 7 p.m. in the land of Oz. There's a part 2 to that, which is usually servicing my wonderful subscribers and patrons, where I answer all their questions about the subject matter. Usually it's reviewing whatever is brand new, bumping, jumping for the great game of 40K. This week, the one you just gone, we had the Chaos Space Marines retrospective with the wonderful Dean Simbeck. And then in part 2, we reviewed the faction focus for Chaos Space Marines that just came out over in Warhammer Community, in addition to giving all their thoughts and answering a bunch of questions. If that isn't your cup of tea and you would like something a little more nuanced, a little more focused on the competitive side of things, Warhammer Meta Chasers is a brand new podcast that is coming out. We have just started producing it. We're into episode 5 this week, where we are essentially your weekly hype show. We look at up to 3 of the biggest events coming in the weekend before. Comes out on Thursdays Eastern Standard Time at 9 p.m. I recorded at 11 o'clock on Fridays, so whatever. And we break down the meta for 3 of the biggest events of the coming weekend. What everyone is taking, what you're going to see there, the faction breakdown from the events, the podiums, who we think is going to win, and of course some of the biggest names in attendance. You know, if there's an ITC championship, a champion at that event, we will tell you what they're bringing and try and tell you why they're bringing it, why it's good, why you should care. Join us over there, One Meta Chasers, a bunch of different places. Then the last one is Forge the Freaking Narrative, the venerable, one of the OGs now. It's funnily enough, I don't know if you know this, this was actually a second wave podcast, and it's been going for 10 years. It's a weekly podcast that's been going for almost 10 years. Paul Murphy has decided to take his first break in 10 years. And we've had the last couple of months, we've only done a couple of episodes. But Forge a Narrative, check it out in the links below. And yeah, wonderful. That is more of a talking heads. Paul Murphy, Tanya Gates, Red Pal, and myself. We just talk about anything we like, from AOS, 30K, 40K, whatever is poignant at the time.
It's a bunch of fun. I can't recommend it enough. So, and for people who maybe struggle for time, listening to podcasts and trying to get your audio content that way is definitely one way to improve your game without dedicating more time to the tabletop. So, absolutely fantastic. And for everyone, the Patreon is definitely worth for Art of War Down Under. Episode 2 is always part 2 is always better than part 1. Biased, always biased. Always listen to part 2 before part 1. That's the way it's just the best people to do it.
I would like to thank you, because you have personally made that content better on part 2, because you always have the best questions. You always ask the best questions, mate. Sam asks phenomenal questions in part 2. They're always nuanced, they're always deep, they're always personal, and they always add so much to the part 2. So really, thank you, man. You made my content better.
No worries, happy to help. It's what I think is interesting. Like, obviously, it's a bit of a tangent. I think that's more interesting. Like, anyone could ask, like, "Oh yeah, cool. How do we add to the CSM list?" Like, cool, that is fantastic. But I think the quality becomes when those more personal questions or those more deeper ones. So I think it's always nice to ask a better question, basically.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely agree, mate. I respect it a lot, and thank you for having me on your wonderful show.
No worries, happy to do. So, but before we wrap things up, so last final plug, so for ourselves, so patreon.com/down under40k. If you contribute a little bit, helps us guys out. So obviously early bird ticket events to the Down Under 40k network, and support content creators like myself and the Circuit Watch and the OG Down Under 40k podcast. Help those lads out. Was shout out before as well. D6 Designs AU, get your custom made dice from Etsy. So DU40KL for 10% off. Absolutely beautiful dice. I'm sure you've seen them, Adam. There's some beautiful dice out there.
Gorgeous.
It's amazing. And then last but not least, Emperor. So Emperor.cc, use DU40KL, down on 40K for a little cheeky discount, and helps a little bit go back to us, guys. So thank you very much for sticking around for the longest ever segment of Wide World of Warhammer. So appreciate it. Thank you very much, Adam. And I look forward to catching up again at the next event, or maybe around 10th edition, probably. Hooroo.
Yeah. Hooroo.
Thanks very much. Thanks.